In a quiet little town surrounded by rolling hills and thick forests, life was simple. People knew each other, doors were left unlocked, and the biggest excitement came from Friday night football games or the annual harvest festival. But one sunny afternoon, something happened that would shake this peaceful place to its core. 12-year-old Maya lived with her grandmother in a cozy house on the edge of town. She was a bright girl with big dreams. She loved reading books about faraway lands and hoped to become a writer someday. Every day after school, she walked home along a narrow dirt path lined with tall trees. It was her favorite part of the day because it felt like stepping into one of her stories, where anything could happen. On this particular afternoon, however, what happened wasn't something out of a fairy tale. As Maya strolled down the path, humming softly to herself, she heard the distant rumble of engines. At first, she thought nothing of it. It wasn't unusual for cars or trucks to pass by occasionally. But as the sound grew louder, she realized these weren't ordinary vehicles. A group of bikers appeared around the bend, their motorcycles roaring like angry beasts. They skidded to a stop right in front of her, blocking her way. The bikers wore leather jackets covered in patches, their faces hidden behind sunglasses and bandanas. Maya froze, clutching her backpack tightly. She had heard whispers about the Iron Fangs, a biker gang known for causing trouble in nearby towns. Some said they intimidated shopkeepers, others claimed they ran illegal activities deep in the woods. But no one ever expected them to show up here, let alone confront a child. One of the bikers, a burly man with tattoos snaking up his arms, sneered at Maya. "What do we have here?" He growled, leaning forward on his bike. His voice sent shivers down her spine. The others laughed, their jeers echoing through the trees. Maya tried to step back, but another biker revved his engine, forcing her to stay put. Then things took a turn for the worse. One of the men whistled sharply, and two large dogs emerged from the shadows. Pit bulls, their muscles rippling under sleek coats, trotted toward Maya with menacing growls. Their eyes glinted dangerously as they circled her, teeth bared. Panic surged through Maya's body. Dropping her backpack, she stumbled backward, tears streaming down her face. Her heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst out of her chest. "Leave her alone," she cried, her voice trembling. But the bikers only laughed harder, egging the dogs on. For a moment, it seemed like there was no escape. The world around Maya blurred. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. All she could see were those snapping jaws getting closer and closer. But fate had other plans. Unbeknownst to anyone, help was already on the way. Just a few miles away, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was driving through the countryside in his truck. He was in town filming his latest movie. But today he'd decided to take a break and explore the area. Known not just for his larger-than-life personality but also for his kindness off-screen, The Rock often went out of his way to connect with people wherever he went. As he rounded a bend in the road, The Rock noticed a cloud of dust rising in the distance. Curious, he slowed down and peered ahead. What he saw made his blood boil. A young girl, no older than 12, was being cornered by two snarling dogs while a group of menacing bikers watched and laughed. Without a second thought, The Rock slammed on the brakes, jumped out of his truck, and sprinted toward the scene. When he arrived, the bikers barely had time to react before The Rock sprang into action. Years of wrestling training kicked in as he assessed the situation. With calm precision, he grabbed a sturdy stick lying nearby and used it to fend off the dogs without hurting them. His powerful presence alone was enough to make the animals retreat, tails tucked between their legs. Once the immediate danger was over, The Rock turned his attention to the bikers, glaring at them with an intensity that could melt steel. "You think this is funny?" he barked, his deep voice cutting through the air like thunder. The bikers exchanged nervous glances, unsure how to respond. None of them had expected to face someone like The Rock, a man whose strength and confidence radiated like a force field. Just as tensions began to rise, another vehicle approached in the distance. This time it was John Cena, who happened to be visiting friends in the area after finishing a promotional tour. Spotting the commotion, Cena pulled over and hurried to join the scene. When he saw The Rock standing protectively over the frightened girl, he immediately understood what was happening. Together, the two wrestling legends formed an unbeatable team. While The Rock kept the bikers at bay with his commanding presence, Cena knelt beside Maya, speaking gently to reassure her. "It's okay," he said, his voice warm and steady. "You're safe now." With both men working together, the situation quickly de-escalated. The bikers, realizing they were outnumbered and outmatched, decided to cut their losses and leave. Grumbling and cursing under their breath, they hopped back onto their bikes and sped off, leaving behind a trail of dust. As the chaos subsided, The Rock and Cena exchanged a look. Despite their history as rivals in the wrestling ring, they shared a bond forged through years of mutual respect. Now, standing side by side in this unexpected scenario, they couldn't help but chuckle. "Guess we still make a pretty good tag. Team," Cena joked, breaking the tension. Maya, though still shaken, managed a small smile. She didn't know much about wrestling, but she recognized these two men from TV. Seeing them work together to save her filled her with awe and gratitude. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a story that would change not only her life but the entire town. After the bikers roared away, leaving behind only dust and tension, The Rock and John Cena turned their full attention to the young girl they had just rescued. Maya sat on the ground, her knees pulled up to her chest, still trying to catch her breath. Her hands trembled as she wiped away tears that refused to stop flowing. Despite her fear, there was a flicker of relief in her eyes. She wasn't alone anymore. Cena crouched beside her, his towering frame somehow gentle and reassuring. "Hey," he said softly, his voice calm but firm, like a comforting anchor in a storm. "You're okay now. We've got you." He reached out slowly, careful not to startle her, and handed her a clean handkerchief from his pocket. Maya took it hesitantly, nodding silently as she dabbed at her wet cheeks. Meanwhile, The Rock stood nearby, scanning the area with sharp eyes. His jaw was clenched tight, the muscles in his neck flexing as he processed what had just happened. Though he wore a composed expression, anyone could see the fire burning inside him. This wasn't just some random act of heroism for him, it was personal. Growing up, he'd seen too many people bullied or pushed around, and he made it a point in life to stand up whenever he saw injustice. "Those guys aren't coming back," The Rock assured Maya, his deep voice steady and full of conviction. "But we need to get you home safe." Maya sniffled and nodded again, clutching her backpack tightly against her chest. For a moment, none of them spoke. The silence was heavy, broken only by the rustling leaves overhead and the distant chirping of birds. It felt surreal, like stepping out of a nightmare and into something almost cinematic. Here were two larger-than-life figures, men who usually graced screens and arenas, standing in the middle of a quiet forest path, protecting a scared little girl. Cena glanced at The Rock, raising an eyebrow. "So, what's the plan, boss?" There was a hint of humor in his tone, but also genuine concern. They both knew this wasn't over. Not really. Those bikers might be gone for now, but their presence lingered like a dark cloud over the town. "First," The Rock replied, crossing his arms, "we take her home. Then we figure out exactly who these guys are and why they thought it was okay to terrorize a kid." His words carried weight, each syllable dripping with determination. Cena nodded in agreement, knowing better than to argue when The Rock got that look in his eye, the one that said, "I'm about to fix this." With that, Cena helped Maya to her feet. She wobbled slightly, her legs still shaky from the adrenaline rush, but she managed to stand. Together, the three of them began walking down the dirt path toward her house. Along the way, Cena kept up a steady stream of conversation, asking Maya questions about herself to distract her from the trauma of the day. "What grade are you in?" he asked casually, smiling warmly. "Fifth? Sixth?" "Sixth," Maya mumbled, her voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated before adding, "I like reading books." "Oh yeah?" Cena's smile widened. "Me too. What kind of books do you like?" Maya hesitated again, unsure if she should trust these strangers completely. But there was something about Cena's friendly demeanor that put her at ease. Adventure stories, she admitted finally. And mysteries. That's awesome, Cena exclaimed, clearly delighted. You know, I used to read all kinds of adventure books when I was your age. Maybe one day you'll write your own story. The Rock, walking slightly ahead of them, chuckled under his breath. Knowing our luck, today's already part of it, he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. Cena laughed, and even Maya cracked a small smile despite herself. As they walked, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden light through the trees. The peaceful scenery seemed almost mocking after what had happened earlier, but Maya couldn't help feeling a tiny spark of hope returning. These men weren't just heroes, they were real people who cared about her. And that meant something. When they arrived at Maya's house, a modest wooden structure surrounded by flower beds and a white picket fence, her grandmother was waiting outside. An elderly woman with silver hair tied neatly in a bun, she looked worried sick. When she spotted Maya approaching with two unfamiliar men, her eyes widened in alarm. "Who are you?" she demanded, stepping forward protectively. Her voice was sharp, but her hands shook slightly as she reached for Maya. "It's okay, Grandma," Maya said quickly, rushing to explain. "They saved me. From the bikers." The grandmother's expression softened immediately, though confusion remained etched on her face. "Bikers? What bikers?" For the next several minutes, The Rock and Cena recounted the events of the afternoon, explaining how they had stumbled upon the scene and intervened. As they spoke, the grandmother listened intently, her hands clasped tightly together. By the time they finished, tears glistened in her eyes, not just from fear for her granddaughter, but from gratitude for the two men standing before her. "You saved her life," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you. It's what we do," The Rock replied simply, shrugging off the praise. But there was no mistaking the sincerity in his tone. Cena nodded in agreement, adding, "We couldn't just stand by and let something happen to her." The grandmother invited them inside, insisting they stay for tea and pie. Neither man wanted to impose, but they accepted anyway, knowing it would give them a chance to learn more about the situation, and perhaps find a way to help beyond just rescuing Maya. Inside, the house was warm and inviting, filled with the scent of freshly baked goods and old wood. Photos lined the walls, capturing memories of family gatherings and simpler times. Sitting at the kitchen table, sipping cups of steaming tea, The Rock and Cena listened as the grandmother shared stories about the town and its troubles. She explained that while the community was generally peaceful, rumors had been swirling about a biker gang causing havoc in neighboring areas. People were afraid to speak up, fearing retaliation if they did. The Iron Fangs, as they called themselves, seemed untouchable, a shadowy force that operated outside the law. As she spoke, The Rock and Cena exchanged meaningful glances. They knew this wasn't just a random incident. Something bigger was at play here, and they couldn't walk away without addressing it. "We'll make sure this doesn't happen again," The Rock promised, his voice unwavering. "No one should live in fear." Cena nodded, leaning forward. "And we'll start by talking to the authorities. If these guys are breaking laws, they need to pay for it." The grandmother smiled weakly, touched by their determination. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "But thank you. Thank you so much." Maya watched quietly from the corner of the room, her heart swelling with admiration for the two men who had changed everything in just a few hours. She didn't fully understand yet how far-reaching their actions would be, but she knew one thing for certain. She owed them her life. As the sun set outside, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, The Rock and Cena prepared to leave. Before they went, Cena knelt down in front of Maya, meeting her gaze directly. "Remember," he told her gently, "you're stronger than you think. Don't ever forget that." The Rock added with a wink and a grin, "And if anyone gives you trouble again, just call us. We'll come running." Maya nodded, a shy but grateful smile spreading across her face. For the first time since the terrifying encounter, she felt truly safe and hopeful for the future. The next morning, the small town buzzed with whispers about what had happened the day before. News traveled fast in such a tight-knit community, and it wasn't long before everyone knew that two famous wrestlers, The Rock and John Cena, had stepped in to save a young girl from a dangerous situation. People gathered at the local diner, sipping coffee and piecing together fragments of the story. Some had seen the commotion themselves, others relied on second-hand accounts. But one thing was clear: the Iron Fangs were no longer just a distant threat. They were real, and they had crossed a line. Meanwhile, The Rock and Cena weren't resting on their laurels. After leaving Maya's house the previous evening, they spent hours discussing what needed to be done next. They both agreed that simply driving away the bikers wasn't enough. If they wanted to make a lasting impact, they had to tackle the root of the problem. That meant working with local authorities, raising awareness among residents, and ensuring that justice was served, not just for Maya, but for everyone who lived in fear of the gang. Early that morning, they met with Sheriff Harris, the head of law enforcement in the area. A grizzled man in his late 50s with a weathered face and a no-nonsense attitude, Sheriff Harris wasn't easily impressed. But even he couldn't hide his surprise when The Rock and Cena walked into his office unannounced. "What can I do for you boys?" the sheriff asked, leaning back in his chair. His tone was polite but guarded, as if he expected them to ask for an autograph or something equally trivial. "We're here about the Iron Fangs," The Rock said bluntly, taking a seat across from the sheriff. Cena followed suit, pulling out a notepad and pen like they were preparing for a serious meeting, which in fact they were. Sheriff Harris raised an eyebrow. "You've got guts walking into my office talking about them. Most folks around here won't even say their name aloud." "That's exactly why we're here," Cena interjected, his voice calm but firm. "People shouldn't have to live in fear. We want to help put an end to this." For a moment, the sheriff studied them, weighing their intentions. Then he sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. "Look, I appreciate your concern, but these guys aren't amateurs. They've been causing trouble all over the region for years. Every time we try to crack down on them, they slip through our fingers. It's like trying to catch smoke." The Rock leaned forward, his elbows resting on the desk. "Then maybe it's time to change tactics," he said, his voice steady and commanding. "We've got resources, connections, and platforms most people don't. If you let us work alongside you, we can turn this whole thing around." Cena nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. Imagine the message it sends when someone stands up to bullies, especially when those bullies think they're untouchable." The sheriff mulled this over, clearly torn between skepticism and hope. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right, but don't expect this to be easy. And whatever happens, stay out of trouble yourselves. I don't need two celebrities getting hurt while playing hero. Deal?" The Rock replied with a grin, extending his hand. The sheriff shook it reluctantly, though there was a flicker of determination in his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, they had a fighting chance. Later, that afternoon, The Rock and Cena paid another visit to Maya's house. This time they brought gifts, a new backpack filled with school supplies for Maya and a bouquet of flowers for her grandmother. Though neither man considered themselves heroes, they understood the importance of gestures like these. It wasn't just about fixing problems, it was about showing kindness and building trust. Maya greeted them shyly, her demeanor much brighter than the day before. She still seemed a little nervous, but there was a newfound confidence in her step. A spark ignited by the knowledge that she wasn't alone anymore. "You holding up okay?" Cena asked, crouching down to her level. He always made sure to speak directly to her, treating her like an equal rather than just a child. "I'm fine," Maya replied, managing a small smile. "Thanks to you." The Rock chuckled, ruffling her hair playfully. "Don't thank us yet. We've got big plans to make sure nothing like that ever happens again." Her grandmother joined them, carrying a tray of lemonade and cookies. "I still can't believe you're doing all this," she admitted, shaking her head in disbelief. "Most people would have just driven off after seeing what happened." "That's not how we operate," The Rock said firmly. "When someone needs help, you step up. No excuses." Over refreshments, they discussed their plan in more detail. The Rock and Cena proposed organizing a charity event in town. a festival designed to bring the community together while raising funds for programs aimed at helping victims of bullying and violence. They envisioned live music, food stalls, games, and speeches from local leaders. More importantly, they hoped it would serve as a platform to encourage people to speak out against injustice. It'll also send a message to the Iron Fangs, Cena added thoughtfully. That we're not afraid of them, and neither should anyone else be. The grandmother listened intently, nodding along. It sounds wonderful, she said finally. But are you sure you can pull something like this off so quickly? Oh, we've got experience, The Rock assured her with a wink. Trust me, organizing events is kind of our thing. True to their word, The Rock and Cena wasted no time getting to work. Over the next few days, they reached out to friends, colleagues, and sponsors, rallying support for the cause. Word spread rapidly, thanks in part to social media posts shared by fans who couldn't get enough of the unlikely duo teaming up once again. Celebrities, athletes, and influencers threw their weight behind the initiative, promising to attend and contribute however they could. Back in town, excitement began to build. Flyers appeared on bulletin boards, posters went up in shop windows, and radio stations announced the event daily. Residents who had once kept quiet about the Iron Fangs now found courage in numbers, sharing their own stories and vowing to stand united. One evening, as preparations reached a fever pitch, The Rock and Cena took a break to reflect on everything that had transpired. Sitting on the porch of a rented cabin overlooking the forest, they watched the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues. You know, Cena said after a long pause, this feels different somehow. Like we're actually making a difference. The Rock nodded, his expression thoughtful. Yeah, wrestling was fun, movies are great, but this is real. These are real people, real lives. And if we can use our fame to protect them, then that's what we're gonna do. Cena smiled, clinking his soda can against the rocks in a silent toast. To teamwork, then. To teamwork. The Rock echoed, grinning. As the stars emerged one by one in the night sky, the two men sat in comfortable silence, knowing they were on the brink of something extraordinary. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were ready to face whatever came their way. Together. The day of the charity event finally arrived, and the small town buzzed with excitement. What had once been a quiet, sleepy place now felt alive with energy. The main street was closed off, lined with colorful tents, food stalls, and stages set up for performances. Bright banners fluttered in the breeze, bearing messages like "Stand together" and "No more fear." People from all over the area poured into town, some to support the cause, others simply curious about the spectacle. Maya woke up early that morning, her heart racing with anticipation. She had never seen anything like this before. Her grandmother helped her get ready, braiding her hair neatly and making sure she wore her favorite dress, a bright yellow one that matched her cheerful personality. As they walked toward the festival grounds, Maya clutched her grandmother's hand tightly, overwhelmed by the sight of so many people coming together. When they arrived, The Rock and Cena greeted them personally at the entrance. Both men looked surprisingly relaxed despite the chaos around them. They were dressed casually, jeans and t-shirts, but their presence commanded attention wherever they went. Children ran up to them for autographs and photos, while adults thanked them profusely for stepping in when no one else would. You ready for today? Cena asked Maya, squatting down to her level. He always made sure to speak directly to her, his tone warm and encouraging. I think so, Maya replied, though her voice betrayed a hint of nervousness. Today wasn't just any ordinary festival. It was also the day she'd agreed to give, a short speech on stage alongside The Rock and Cena. Though she admired them deeply, the thought of speaking in front of hundreds of people terrified her. You'll do great, The Rock said confidently, giving her a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Just remember why you're doing it. You're not just talking for yourself, you're speaking for everyone who's ever felt scared or powerless. His words struck a chord with Maya. She nodded slowly, feeling a tiny spark of courage ignite within her. If these two giants could face challenges head-on, then maybe she could too. As the event kicked off, the atmosphere grew electric. Local musicians took turns performing on the main stage, filling the air with lively tunes. Kids laughed as they played carnival games trying to win stuffed animals or oversized balloons. Food vendors served everything from hot dogs to homemade pies, the delicious smells wafting through the crowd. It was hard to believe that just weeks earlier, this same community had been gripped by fear. But amidst the fun and festivities, there was a deeper purpose driving the day. At noon, the Rock and Cena stepped onto the stage to address the crowd. Hundreds of people gathered around, eager to hear what they had to say. Microphones crackled as the Rock leaned in, his voice booming across the square. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, pausing to let the cheers die down. "We didn't organize this event because we wanted to be heroes. We did it because we believe in something bigger than ourselves, something stronger than fear." Cena stepped forward next, picking up where the Rock left off. "Fear is a powerful thing. It can silence us, divide us, make us feel like we're alone. But look around you." He gestured to the sea of faces surrounding them. "None of us are alone. Not anymore." The crowd erupted into applause, moved by their words. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Maya's turn to speak. With the Rock and Cena standing protectively beside her, she stepped up to the microphone. Her hands trembled as she gripped the sides of the podium, but she forced herself to look out at the audience. "My name is Maya," she started, her voice soft but steady. "A few weeks ago, I was walking home from school when some bad people tried to hurt me. They let their dogs chase me, and I thought no one was going to help me." Her voice cracked slightly, and she paused to take a deep breath. The Rock placed a comforting hand on her back, silently urging her to continue. "But then," she went on, "two amazing men showed up. They saved me, not just from the dogs, but from feeling like I was all alone. Because of them, I realized that even when things seem really scary, there are still good people in the world who will stand up for what's right." By the time she finished, tears streamed down her face. But so did they stream down the faces of countless others in the audience. Parents hugged their children tighter, friends exchanged knowing glances, and strangers nodded in solidarity. It was a moment that transcended words, one that reminded everyone present of the power of unity and compassion. After Maya's speech, the Rock and Cena stayed on stage to announce the next phase of their plan, working with local authorities to dismantle the Iron Fangs once and for all. Sheriff Harris joined them, looking unusually optimistic as he addressed the crowd. "We've already started cracking down on illegal activities tied to the gang," he explained. "Thanks to tips from brave citizens, and thanks to our new partners here, we're closer than ever to putting these criminals behind bars." The Rock raised a fist in triumph. "That's what happens when you mess with a community that refuses to stay silent," Cena added. "And just to be clear, if anyone tries to intimidate you again, you call us. Seriously. We mean it." Laughter rippled through the crowd, lightening the mood. For the first time in years, residents felt empowered instead of afraid. The message was clear. The Iron Fangs might have ruled through fear in the past, but those days were over. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the festival, the Rock and Cena wandered through the crowds, shaking hands and posing for pictures. They weren't just celebrities anymore. They were symbols of hope, proof that even the biggest challenges could be overcome with determination and teamwork. At one point, they found themselves back at the stage watching as fireworks lit up the sky. Explosions of red, blue, and gold reflected off their faces as they stood side by side, arms crossed. Despite the noise and excitement around them, they shared a quiet moment of reflection. "You know," Cena said softly, breaking the silence, "this feels different from wrestling championships or movie premieres. This feels real." The Rock nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Yeah. Out there, it's scripted. Here, this is life. And if we can use our platform to make life better for people like Maya, then that's exactly what we're gonna keep doing." They exchanged a glance, both men understanding that their work wasn't done yet. There would always be more battles to fight, more communities to uplift. But for now, they allowed themselves to bask in the joy of the moment, the knowledge that they had truly made a difference. As the final firework fizzled out, the crowd erupted into cheers once more. The Rock and Cena raised their hands high, soaking in the love and gratitude radiating from every direction. In that instant, they weren't wrestlers or actors, they were heroes, and sometimes that's exactly what the world needs. In the weeks following the charity event, the small town began to transform in ways no one had anticipated. The festival hadn't just raised money, it had ignited a sense of unity and courage among its residents. People who had once kept to themselves now greeted each other warmly on the streets. Neighbors started organizing community watch programs, determined to keep their town safe from any future threats. And slowly but surely, whispers about the Iron Fangs grew louder. Tips poured into Sheriff Harris's office, painting a clearer picture of the gang's operations. For Maya, life began to feel normal again, but with a newfound confidence she hadn't possessed before. She returned to school, walking the same dirt path that had once been the site of her terrifying encounter. This time, however, she wasn't alone. Parents volunteered to escort children along the route, ensuring no one felt unsafe. Even some of her classmates joined her, chatting and laughing as they made their way home together. Maya found herself smiling more often, her fear replaced by a quiet determination to stand strong, just like the Rock and Cena had taught her. Meanwhile, the Rock and Cena remained deeply involved in the effort to bring down the Iron Fangs. They worked tirelessly, behind the scenes, using their connections to gather resources and support for the investigation. Celebrities and influencers continued to amplify the cause online, sharing updates and urging people to come forward with information. Every lead mattered, no matter how small, and the momentum only grew stronger with each passing day. Sheriff Harris held regular meetings with The Rock, Cena, and his team, mapping out strategies to dismantle the gang piece by piece. It wasn't easy. The Iron Fangs were cunning, always staying one step ahead. But the sheriff's resolve was unwavering, bolstered by the knowledge that an entire community stood behind him. "We're not backing down," he declared during one such meeting. "Not this time." One breakthrough came unexpectedly when a local mechanic approached the authorities with crucial information. He revealed that members of the Iron Fangs frequently brought their bikes to his shop for repairs, often bragging about their illegal activities. With this new insight, the police set up surveillance around the mechanic's shop, capturing evidence that linked several key members of the gang to crimes ranging from theft to animal cruelty. As arrests began rolling in, the town breathed a collective sigh of relief. One by one, the faces of the bikers who had terrorized them appeared on news reports, accompanied by headlines declaring their capture. Residents cheered openly, celebrating each victory as if it were their own. For years these men had operated with impunity, believing they were untouchable. Now justice was finally catching up to them. But the Rock and Cena knew the fight wasn't over yet. While the immediate threat of the Iron Gang was being addressed, they wanted to ensure that something like this could never happen again. Together, they spearheaded the creation of a safe space for children in the community, a place where kids like Maya could learn self-defense, express themselves through art and writing, and find mentors who cared about their well-being. Funded entirely by donations from the charity event, the center quickly became a beacon of hope for families across the town. Maya was one of the first to sign up for classes at the new center. On her first day, she walked in timidly, unsure of what to expect. But the warm welcome she received from instructors and fellow students put her at ease immediately. There were workshops on everything from karate to creative writing, designed to empower young minds and bodies alike. In one session, she even wrote a short story inspired by her own experience, a tale of bravery, friendship, and triumph over fear. When she shared it with the group, they erupted into applause, leaving her beaming with pride. The Rock and Cena visited the center regularly, checking in on its progress and spending time with the kids. They weren't just figureheads. They rolled up their sleeves and got involved, teaching lessons, playing games, and listening to stories. During one visit, Cena led a workshop on public speaking, encouraging the children to share their thoughts without fear of judgment. "Your voice matters," he told them. "Never forget that." The Rock, meanwhile, organized fitness challenges, showing the kids how to channel their energy into strength and resilience. You don't have to be big to be strong, he reminded them. Strength comes from inside. Their presence had a profound impact on everyone at the center, not just the kids but also the adults who worked there. Many of the instructors admitted they'd grown up watching the Rock and Cena wrestle, idolizing them as larger-than-life heroes. Seeing them now, working so humbly and genuinely, reinforced their belief in the power of kindness and perseverance. Back in town, the ripple effects of the charity event continued to spread. Local businesses thrived as tourists flocked to see the place where two wrestling legends had taken on a biker gang. Merchandise featuring slogans like "Stand Strong" and "Together We Rise" sold out almost instantly, with proceeds going directly back into the community. A mural depicting The Rock and Cena standing protectively over Maya appeared on the side of a building, becoming a popular spot for photos and tributes. Even Mayor Thompson, who had initially been skeptical of outsiders getting involved, publicly thanked The Rock and Cena for their efforts. "They didn't just save a girl," he said during a press conference. "They saved a town. They reminded us of our own strength and showed us what's possible when we stand together." As the weeks turned into months, the bond between the Rock, Cena, and the town only grew stronger. Though their filming schedules eventually pulled them away, they promised to stay connected, checking in regularly via phone calls and video chats. They also vowed to return for special events, ensuring the community knew they hadn't been forgotten. For Maya, the changes in her life were undeniable. She no longer flinched at the sound of motorcycles or avoided walking alone. Instead, she carried herself with a quiet confidence, knowing she had faced her fears and emerged stronger. Her grandmother noticed the shift too, marveling at how much her granddaughter had grown in such a short time. One evening, as Maya sat in her room writing in her journal, she paused to reflect on everything that had happened. She thought about the day she'd been chased by those dogs, the moment The Rock and Cena had stepped in to save her, and the incredible journey that had followed. Picking up her pen, she wrote, "Sometimes bad things happen. Sometimes the world feels scary and unfair. But sometimes heroes show up when you least expect them. And when they do, they don't just change your life, they change the whole world." Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the town. Life here would never be the same again, and that was okay. Because now, it was better, stronger, together. Months had passed since the charity event, and the small town was almost unrecognizable. The streets buzzed with a newfound energy, one that came from a sense of safety and togetherness. People who once avoided eye contact now greeted each other warmly, sharing stories over coffee at the local diner or chatting during evening strolls. The Iron Fangs were no longer a shadow looming over the community. They were gone, their leaders behind bars and their influence shattered. It was as if the town had taken a deep breath after years of holding it in. For Maya, life felt like a completely different story. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. Her confidence blossomed in ways her grandmother could hardly believe. Gone was the shy girl who tiptoed through the world, afraid of every sound and shadow. In her place stood a bold young woman who spoke up when something didn't feel right, laughed freely, and dreamed bigger than ever before. Every day she walked to school with her head held high, surrounded by friends who admired her courage and resilience. The safe space created by The Rock and Cena became a cornerstone of the community. Children flocked to its classes, eager to learn self-defense, express themselves through art, or simply find a place where they belonged. Parents volunteered their time, helping out with workshops and events. Even teenagers, who often struggled to find their footing, found solace within its walls, connecting with mentors who genuinely cared about their futures. The center wasn't just a building, it was a lifeline, proof that even in the darkest times light could shine through. One crisp autumn afternoon, Maya arrived at the center for her weekly creative writing class. She carried a notebook filled with stories she'd been working on, each inspired by the journey she'd been through. As she stepped inside, she noticed decorations lining the walls, balloons, streamers, and posters announcing a special celebration. Curious, she approached one of the instructors. "What's all this for?" Maya asked, gesturing to the festive setup. The instructor smiled knowingly. "Didn't you hear? The Rock and Cena are coming back today. They're throwing a party to celebrate how far we've come." Maya's eyes widened in surprise. Though they had stayed in touch via video calls and messages, she hadn't expected them to return so soon. Excitement bubbled inside her as she hurried to help set up, arranging chairs and hanging banners alongside other kids. By the time everything was ready, the room buzzed with anticipation. When the Rock and Cena finally walked through the door, the entire center erupted into cheers. Both men looked around, grinning ear to ear as they soaked in the warm welcome. They hugged familiar faces, posed for photos, and handed out gifts to the kids: books, sports equipment, and handwritten notes of encouragement. For hours, laughter filled the air as everyone celebrated together, sharing food, music, and memories. As the party wound down, the Rock called everyone to gather in the main hall. He stood beside Cena, his towering frame commanding attention yet radiating warmth. When the crowd quieted, he began to speak. "We came here months ago because we saw a problem that needed fixing," he said, his voice steady and heartfelt. "But what we found was more than just a town in trouble. We found strength, unity, and love. You didn't just let us help, you joined us. Together we made something incredible happen." Cena stepped forward next, picking up where the Rock left off. "This isn't just our victory, it's yours. Every single person here played a part in making this community stronger, and that's why we're not saying goodbye forever. We'll always be connected to this place, to all of you." His words brought tears to many eyes, including Maya's. She clutched her notebook tightly, overwhelmed by gratitude. These two men had done more than save her. They had given an entire town hope. After their speeches, the Rock and Cena spent time mingling with everyone, listening to stories and offering advice. When they reached Maya, they knelt down to her level, just as they always did. "How's the writing going?" Cena asked, nodding toward her notebook. "It's good," Maya replied, smiling shyly. "I wrote a story about what happened and how you guys changed everything." "Well, we can't wait to read it," the Rock said, giving her a playful wink. "Maybe one day you'll write a bestseller." "I think you already have," Cena added, ruffling her hair affectionately. Before leaving, the Rock and Cena gathered the kids for one last group photo. Arms wrapped around shoulders, smiles stretched wide, and laughter echoed off the walls. It was a moment none of them would forget, a snapshot of joy, resilience, and unity. In the days that followed, the town continued to move forward, carrying the lessons learned during those tumultuous months. The Rock and Cena remained symbols of hope, their actions reminding everyone that even ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they worked together. Their visit may have ended, but their impact endured. For Maya, the changes in her life were permanent. She no longer feared walking home alone or doubted her ability to stand up for herself. Her dreams grew bolder. She wanted to become a writer, not just for herself but for others who might need a story to inspire them. On quiet evenings, she sat by her window, penning tales of bravery and triumph, imagining readers finding comfort in her words. Her grandmother watched proudly as Maya transformed into someone fearless yet kind, someone who understood the power of standing up for what was right. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, she placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. "You know," she said softly, "you remind me of those two men who saved you. Strong, brave, and full of heart." Maya smiled, looking out at the horizon painted in hues of orange and pink. "They taught me that being strong isn't about size or muscles. It's about believing in yourself and in others." And as the sun dipped below the hills, casting the town in a golden glow, Maya knew one thing for certain: the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. But with courage, determination, and the support of those who cared, anything was possible. The little girl, who had once been chased by dogs, was now a hero in her own right, a beacon of hope for anyone facing their own battles.